Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei become a hollow dragon? Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. A silver-haired 16-year-old teenager trudged downstairs with a yawn, dressed in the Kuo Academy uniform as he entered the kitchen as he spoke. "Morning, Keiko ni." "Morning, Yukio-kun," replied the shoulder-length blonde-haired young woman, smiling back at him as she set the 2 plates of breakfast onto the table, taking her seat opposite him as she appraised her younger brother's appearance. Yukio's scruffy silver hair was pulling back into short stub of a ponytail that was held in place by an elastic band, while the front reached down to just past his eyebrows in a spiky pattern and could hide his dark red eyes on occasion. He stood at 5'8" with a lean build that had come from his martial arts lessons when he was younger. "So how's school?" she asked. Working as a nurse at a hospital during most of the day meant that their only time to talk would be in the mornings before she had to go. "Alright, still trying to get used to it," Yukio replied in between mouthfuls of food, noticing the time as he wolfed down what he had left before grabbing his bag and running out the door as he called behind him. "Aini-san." Yukio stretched as he walked to school. His sister had looked after him since he'd lost his parents when he was about 8, but he still wanted to protect her, so had taken to learning a few different martial art styles until he started a Kuo, more from Keiko telling him that she could take care of herself. Reaching the school gates, he was reminded of the boy-girl ratio of the school before his eyes picked up the popular students of the school, which consisted of Rias, Gremory and Akeno Himejima, the 2 school idols, Yudo Kiba, otherwise known as the Handsome Prince, and Kaneko Taoju, who was considered the school mascot. Yukio himself was used to being considered helpful and had tutored a few of the girls from his class, although he wasn't aware of the small fan club that had formed for him cause of it. As he headed inside the school building, he didn't notice the pair of looks he was getting from the 2 school idols, Rias speaking up once he was no longer in sight. "Who was that?" "Both it's Yukio Hosokawa. A few of the girls like him because he doesn't mind tutoring those that need it from his class," Akeno replied, looking to her friend to see Rias nodding. "Interesting. Looks like time's up, Kiryu-san." Yukio spoke friendly, the glasses-wearing black-haired girl smiling as they both packed their things away before starting to walk out. "Thanks for your help, Yukio-kun. I'd be stuck on that for a while otherwise." Kiryu spoke with a smile as she lied. She understood it, but had figured it would give her reason to spend time around him. Splitting ways at the school gates, each headed towards their own homes. Yukio broke into a jog so he could get home so he could finish his own schoolwork, his ears pricking up as he heard a girly scream for help. Skidding on his feet, he turned towards the direction of the noise, his eyebrows lowering as he decided to help the girl that was in trouble. Only a few minutes passed till he found himself looking at a man trying to force a black-haired girl against a wall, not thinking for another second as Yukio rushed forward. He threw a punch at the man, knocking him back and away from the girl as a serious look dominated his face. He relaxed as he figured that the man was unconscious, turning to speak to the girl, only to find a sharp pain piercing his stomach. "Sorry. You were a threat to us, so we decided to get rid of you early. If you want to hold a grudge, then hate the god who put the sacred gear inside you." Yuma spoke with a cold smile as she pulled the light spear from his stomach, flying off as Yukio collapsed onto the ground. "I can't believe I died cause of helping someone. I wish," he thought, his eyes growing heavy as the crimson glow of a magic circle appeared no more than a few feet away from him. Yukio woke up with his alarm as usual, switching off the annoying sound as he turned over and snuggled into the warmth next to him in an attempt to savor a few more moments of sleep, his eyes widening upon hearing the soft moan from it as he found himself looking into the peaceful face of Rias Gremory. Backing up instantly, Yukio swore he didn't go to bed last night with her before his eyes widened at not remembering going to bed at all the previous night. He caught his traitorous eyes trailing down her beautiful body, his cheeks reddening as he looked away to calm himself down. "Rias Gremory sleeping in my bed," he thought, his mind frying for a moment before he found himself recalling that he'd been killed the night before as he moved his hand to his stomach to find not even a scar. "Yukio-kun. Wake up," Keiko called, Yukio jumping slightly at what his sister would think of Rias being in here with him as he turned to wake her. Keiko had always been protective of him in that manner, and even if he didn't know what had happened last night, she'd assume the worst and blame it all on Rias. "Come on, senpai, you need to get up and dress," Yukio spoke, trying to keep the panic from his voice as he gently shook her shoulder, Rias stirring as Yukio threw her shirt on her head as he started to pull on his own clothes. Rias pulled the shirt from off her head as she sleepily looked around the room, giggling as she watched Yukio hop around his room as he attempted to pull his slacks up. His shirt was open and a panicked look was on his face. "Yukio?" she asked, confused as Yukio finally managed to fasten his slacks as he turned to face her. He blushed as he remembered her state of dress, turning back around as he spoke seriously. "You should hurry and get dressed before my sister suspects something, but you're going to have to explain things later." "Yukio-kun, come on, your breakfast is done," Keiko called, Yukio fastening his shirt before pulling on his blazer as Rias asked, "Why?" She's protective of me and finding you in here like that, well, you may have her temper directed at you at full force in it. A good thing he swear she could take on the Mayu with her death glare. Yukio spoke, shuddering at the last time he was the target of it. Ria's eyes were wide as she decided to get dressed, not wanting to get on the bad side of her new servant sister. Please just wait here till I call for you, senpai. Yukio spoke as he checked there wasn't anything else he needed to do before leaving the room, closing the door behind him before heading downstairs. He smiled sheepishly as he spotted Keiko looking at him sternly with her hands on her hips as she spoke. You're going to be late, no, and you're going to need this. She held out an elastic band for him, Yukio scratching the back of his head as he accepted it with his other hand. Fixing his hair in a few seconds, he thanked her as she turned to head into the kitchen as she spoke. Who is she? Yukio froze for a moment, looking at her back as he wondered how she knew as he lied. I don't know what you're talking about, One-Isani just had trouble getting up today. Don't lie, it's not something you can do. Keiko spoke seriously as Yukio gulped as she turned to look at him angrily. She had better not have corrupted my little Nai-kun, otherwise I'll have to teach her a lesson. Her eyes were ablaze as she tightened her clutch on the wooden spoon in her hand. Yukio stepped back from her as he spoke. Nothing happened. Keiko searched his face for a few moments before nodding to herself as she turned to enter the kitchen as she called behind her. I suppose she will want some breakfast as well. Yukio sighed in relief, having managed to take the brunt of his sister's anger as he headed back upstairs, jumping at seeing a dressed and ready Rias waiting on the landing, nervous over what she had heard. Don't worry senpai, you'll just have to endure at 20 questions now. Yukio spoke with as best a relaxed smile that he could manage, given the whole confusing morning he'd been having. Sitting in the kitchen, an uncomfortable atmosphere filled the room. Keiko seemed to keep her stern gaze between the two others, Yukio avoiding it as much as possible by looking at his plate. Well, Rias answered, Yukio-kun was just helping me with my studies last night, must have fell asleep when we took a small break. Keiko took a moment to swallow the mouthful of food before looking to Yukio as she spoke. I didn't know Nai-kun was that smart. Yukio blushed as he looked up to his sister. She only called him Nai-kun in front of any girl. His eyes widened at the hollow look in his sister's eyes as he heard Rias whisper into his ear, I'm sorry, it looked like it would become troublesome, so I used my power. Power? What power? Yukio thought as he turned to look at her, Rias smiling friendly as she turned back to Keiko, who seemed to have calmed down with the story she'd given her, Yukio looking confused between the two before jumping slightly as Rias spoke. Don't waste One-Isama's food. Yukio blushed as he finished his meal, catching glimpses of Rias elegant eating next to him. The pair's walk to school seemed to be filled with the confused and, mostly angry stares from other students. Why is he with Rias Onisama? How could she pick him so much better? No. Yukio-kun has been taken by One-Isama. The last comment was from one of the few girls that liked Yukio, the silver-haired boy blushing as Rias giggled as they reached the school gates, accepting her bag from Yukio as she spoke. I will send someone to you afterwards. I'll see you after school. Yukio nodded as she walked off, trying to come to terms with all that had happened this morning, looking up as he heard Kiryu spoke up annoyed. How could you hide the fact you're with Rias Onisama? I'm not with senpai, we just happened to be walking the same way, Yukio rebuked as he stepped back, his hands up in defense as she calmed down, only for more rumors starting up. The school day seemed to stretch by as he had to put up with the rumors about him and Rias, some of the boys making threats to kick his ass if he didn't break up with her. The thought of them trying made him laugh. Even if he'd stopped taking martial arts classes, he still remembered most of it. He was curious over who Rias would be sending to collect him as he packed his school bag up, looking up as he heard a voice from the door. Hi, how are you doing? Looking over, he found Yudo Kiba standing before his desk, the girls screaming with joy at the handsome prince's appearance in their classroom. I'm fine, did Gremory senpai ask you to? Yukio spoke confused as Yudo nodded as he added, would you follow me? Yukio stood up as he grabbed his bag, the girls screaming up about the pair of them being some sort of couple as Yukio thought confused. What the big deal about us walking together? Yukio followed Yudo as they headed out the back of the school building and towards the building known as the old school building, which is surrounded by trees. The building itself looked creepy and considered one of the 7 wonders of the school, but it was just an old building made from wood. Yukio seemed surprised that all of the windows looked to still be in place, turning his gaze to Yudo, who spoke. Butchu is here. Butchu? I guess he means Gremory senpai, Yukio thought as he continued to follow the blonde-haired second year, looking in surprise at the clean corridors and empty rooms they passed as they headed up to the second floor. Yudo stopped before a particular classroom, Yukio looking confused as he noticed the sign on the doorway. The Cult Research Club. Yukio spoke to himself confused. Yudo seemed to smile before calling out. Butchu, I have brought a may reply soon, following from Rias. And Yudo entered first with Yukio close behind, the latter freezing in surprise as his eyes roamed the room, picking up on all the weird signs and words all around the classroom. His eyes lingered on the large circle written on the floor, getting a creepy vibe from the whole room, before he picked up on the couple of sofas and desks in the room. This is Hosokawa Yukio-kun. Kiba introduced as Yukio's eyes finally met with Kaneko's as he spoke, lowering his head as she did. Nice to meet you. Kaneko didn't reply, reminding Yukio of the rumors about her not talking much as she continued to eat the plate of yakin. The sound of water caused Yukio to turn, wondering where it was coming from, his eyebrows knitting in confusion at seeing the shower curtain at the back of the room. I swear I've fallen asleep again. A shower in a classroom which is filled with unusual signs and a magic circle on the floor, Yukio thought, opting to pinch the back of his hand to be sure as he was awake. Here, take this, but you. A female voice spoke, Yukio wondering who else was there as he heard Rias. Thank you, Akeno. Yukio decided to sit down on one of the sofas, sighing as he found himself remembering what had happened that morning, his face darkening for a moment before paling, as he found Keiko's glare from this morning at the front of his mind. I'm glad Nii-san didn't come into my room this morning, he thought with a shudder, looking up to find Kaneko looking confused at him before finding Rias looking at him as she spoke. I'm sorry. I couldn't take a shower last night because I stayed the night at your place. So I took a shower now. Yukio nodded understandingly as he scratched the back of his neck, still a part of him wondering why there was a shower in a classroom, before he picked up on the black-haired girl behind Rias. Oh my, how do you do? My name is Himejima Akeno, pleased to make your acquaintance. Akeno introduced herself politely with a smiling face, Yukio surprised at the two school idols in the same club as he spoke up formally. My name is Hosokawa Yukio. Nice to meet you too, senpai. Looks like everyone is here. Hosokawa Yukio-kun. No, let me call you Yukio. Rias spoke, taking Yukio's nod as an agreement as she continued. We, the Occult Research Club, welcome you. Okay, Yukio spoke, hoping to get some explanation over all that had happened as Rias finished speaking. As a devil, Yukio's mouth dropped open as he looked confused at her. Here's your tea, Akeno spoke, handing a cup to Yukio, who'd regained some of his mind as he spoke. Thank you. Taking a quick sip out of courtesy, he'd never seemed to like drinking it before, he found himself surprised as he added, it tastes great. I don't normally like tea. Oh my. Thank you very much. Akeno replied as she started to laugh. Yudo, Kaneko and Rias also sitting on the sofa surrounding the table as Rias put down her own cup of tea as she spoke. Akeno, you sit over here as well. Yes, but you. Akeno spoke as she moved to sit next to Rias, everyone looking at Yukio, who fidgeted slightly nervous before Rias spoke to him. I will tell you directly. We are all devils. Definitely direct, Yukio thought as he sweat dropped, wondering whether that would explain what had happened the previous night, before settling on the fact it didn't explain anything and just gave him more questions. Your expression says that you don't believe what I am saying. Well, that can't be helped. You remember the girl yesterday that killed you? Yukio's eyes widened as he now figured it was relevant as she spoke. That's a fallen angel. They were former angels who served God, but they fell down to hell because they had evil intentions. They are also the enemy of us devils. Rias continuing so Yukio would understand things better. We, the devils, have been in a war with the fallen angels since ancient times. We have been fighting over the possession of the underworld, also known as hell in the human world. The underworld is split into two areas of the devil and fallen angel. The devil forms a pact with humans and receives their sacrifice and increases their strength. The fallen angel on the other hand controls humans to eliminate devils. And here, the angels come to destroy the two races on God's order. So the war is split into three groups. Devils, fallen angels and angels. This has been going on since ancient times. Wait, what has that got to do with me being killed? Yukio asked confused, feeling as if he'd stepped into a fantasy game as Rias answered. The reason why your life was aimed for by her is because that you were a human who possessed the sacred gear. Sorry. You were a threat to us, so we decided to get rid of you early. If you want to hold a grudge, then hate the god who put the sacred gear inside you. Yukio remembered the girl saying that to him after she'd stabbed him with whatever she was using as Rias continued. That day you were killed by the spear of light. Yukio wondered if she could read his mind as he turned his thoughts onto whatever a sacred gear was, as Yudo spoke up to answer. Sacred gear is an irregular power that is bestowed to certain humans. For example, most of the people whose names are recorded in history are said to be possessors of sacred gears. They use the power of their sacred gear to record their name in history. Now that's weird, Yukio thought as Akeno continued from where Yudo finished. Presently, there are people who have a sacred gear within their body. You know, those people who play an important role worldwide. Most of those people possess a sacred gear within their body. Most of the sacred gears have functions that are only usable in the human society. But there are exceptional sacred gears that are a threat to the devils and fallen angels. Yukio, raise your hand high. Rias spoke, Yukio complying even if he was confused, his left hand held up as she continued. Close your eyes and imagine the thing that you think is the strongest. Yukio closed his eyes as he trawled through his mind for a few moments before settling on Tsuna from Katekyo Hitman Reborn. Strongest being? Tsuna from Katekyo Hitman Reborn. Then imagine that person. Now imagine him in a particular pose where he looks the strongest. Rias spoke as Yukio gave her a look which asked "Are you serious?" for a few moments before closing his eyes and focused on how Tsuna stood for his ex-burner. "Lower your arms slowly and stand up." Rias spoke, Yukio complying as he got up from the sofa, awaiting her next instruction. "Now mimic the pose of that person. You have to copy it properly, and you cannot hold back." Yukio blushed slightly at the idea of copying the move in front of them, even with his eyes closed, he could still tell they were there. "Hurry and do it." Rias urged him again, Yukio gulping as he took a calming breath and moved his feet apart, putting his right arm behind him, with his palm facing the wall behind him, while his left was held up in front of him, his hand scrunched up in a fist. "Ex-burner?" Yukio called, thrusting his left palm forward as he copied Tsuna's attack, embarrassed, Rias soon speaking up. "Now, open your eyes. Since this place is filled with magic powers, the sacred gear will appear more easily." Yukio opened his eyes, a flash of light starting to glow from his left arm and right hand. He found himself shocked as the light started to form over his left arm, the light soon fading to reveal a red gauntlet, a green orb set in the back of his hand, while in the right hand he now held the hilt of a giant cleaver-shaped weapon, which was about the same height as he was, completely covered in crimson cloth with black borders which wrapped horizontally down it to hide the blade underneath. Looking closer he could see that the cloth covering had come from that which was wrapped around the hilt, and there was even a little piece of it sticking out of the top of the hilt. "What the hell are these?" Yukio spoke confused and surprised as he looked between his two weapons, not noticing the surprise on the others' faces as Rias spoke. The multiple sacred gear user, her voice sounded as shocked as she looked at them and him, Yukio feeling his body becoming heavier as he started to pant, dropping to one knee as the cloth-covered weapon disappeared. "Looks like you can't handle both at the moment, but that's Octus are sacred gears, and they are yours. Once they've appears, you could use it anywhere and anytime as you will." Rias spoke with a smile as Yukio pulling himself back to his feet easily, the weight having disappeared as soon as the large weapon had, while looking surprised at his hands and the red gauntlet that covered his left arm. "You were killed by the fallen angel because of the big threat your sacred gears poses, and you called me when you were on the verge of death. I was summoned by this poster." Rias spoke as she pulled out a single leaflet, Yukio recognizing it as one he'd been given during his walk home. The leaflet had a weird magic circle and a catchphrase that read, "We will grant your wish." If someone looked carefully, the magic circle on the leaflet is the same as the big magic circle on the floor. "This is one of the leaflets we give out. This magic circle is used to summon us devils. Lately, not many people draw this circle to summon us. So we give these leaflets to people who look like they would summon devils. This magic circle is safe and easy to use." That day, one of our familiars that was disguised as a human was handing this out amongst your route home. "You got it at that time, Yukio. After you were attacked by the fallen angel, you called me while you were on the verge of death. You wished so hard that it summoned me. Usually, Akeno and the others from my household are the ones who are summoned. Did I wish that hard?" Yukio thought confused, he remembered wishing for something, but what he wasn't sure of. "When I was summoned and saw you, I knew right away that you were attacked by a fallen angel and that you were the possessor of the sacred gear. But there was a problem, and that was that you were on a brink of death. Not just devils, but humans also would be killed instantly if impaled by fallen angel's spear of light. You were also in a state like that, and I decided to save your life." Rias spoke, Yukio understanding how he was still alive now as she continued. "Although, as a devil. Yukio, you were reborn as a devil of mine, Rias Gremory, household, as my underling devil." She clicked her fingers and at that moment wings grew out of the back of everyone besides Yukio. They looked like the wings of a bat. Rias clicked her fingers again, and from his back a pair appeared, looking back over his shoulder to look at them. "Let's introduce everyone anew. Yudo." Rias spoke, Yudo smiled at him as he spoke. "My name is Kiba Yudo. Like you already know, I'm a second year like you, Hosokawa Yukio-kun. I'm a devil too, nice to meet you." "First year Taoju Kaneko, pleased to make your acquaintance. I'm a devil." Kaneko spoke, bowing her head slightly. "My name is Himejima Akeno, and I'm in third year. I'm also the vice president of this research club. Nice to meet you. Even though I'm like this, I'm also a devil." "Oh my." Akeno also bowed her head very politely, leaving Rias to introduce herself as she waved her crimson hair and spoke directly. "And I'm their master, Devil Rias Gremory of the House of Gremory. My house holds the rank of a duke. Let's get along from now on, Yukio." "Yes, senpai." Yukio spoke as Rias corrected him. "No, that's not it. You will have to call me Butchu as it's more fitting in school." "Alright, Butchu." Yukio replied with a nod. A few days had passed since then as Yukio walked back to his home. He'd been delivering leaflets since the day he found out everything from Rias, his master. He silently sighing as he ran through what Rias had explained that he needed to know. His devil's wings and the red gauntlet were gone so he could continue with his daily life, although he was curious to learn to fly, even if it was impossible to be taught in the city. I'll have to avoid any fallen or angels from now on, he thought as he continued to walk towards his home, replaying most of the important details he'd been told by Rias in his head. Yukio soon found the hairs sticking up on the back of his neck as he felt like he was being followed. Turning to look behind him, he found no one standing there before deciding to hurry home in a jog. Dump, a deep male voice spoke out inside his mind, Yukio reacting before he could question it before looking back to find that a spear of light slammed into the pavement where he'd been only a few moments ago. But he thought, looking around for the person who'd thrown it as he landed a few feet away. Just my luck, he spoke to himself quietly. Left, the voice spoke again, Yukio moving to the left as another spear hit the ground, right where he'd been standing, turning to see a middle-aged man flying there with his black wings spread out behind him. How did you avoid those, little devil? He asked, curious, Yukio adopting a fighting stance as he wondered how he'd get away without getting killed again. You would not get away unless you could fly, the voice spoke back to his idea, Yukio looking confused as he spoke quietly. I'm going mad. You are not, the voice replied as the fallen prepared another spear in his hands, as Yukio spoke quietly. So what is your plan? Your gauntlet will be sufficient to give you enough of a distraction, the voice spoke, Yukio arching an eyebrow in confusion as the fallen spoke. You seem to be an exiled devil who's gone mad. Don't worry, I'll soon put you out of your misery. Wait till he throws it before attacking, and if you wish to speak with me, you only have to think, the voice spoke up, Yukio gulping as he readied himself to dodge the incoming attack. The fallen threw his spear, Yukio jumping over the attack, activating his gauntlet as he threw a punch, hitting the fallen in the face, cause of his surprise. The fallen taking a few moments to stabilize his flight before looking around for Yukio only to find no one around, cursing under his breath as he flew off again. Yukio panted as he finally reached home, letting himself in as he found Keiko taking off her shoes before him. She looked over her shoulder to him, giving him a smile as she spoke, welcome home. I should be telling you that, Keiko ni, Yukio spoke, as he regained his breath, remembering that Rias had said something about using her magic on her, so he would be able to return and go as he needed to during the nights, quickly pulling off his shoes before heading into the kitchen as she asked, did you eat earlier? Yukio smiled as he nodded as he replied, I just wanted some water before I go to bed. Filling a glass from the drainer, he headed out of the room, but not before bidding Keiko good night. Heading upstairs to his room, draining the water before setting the glass onto his desk as he decided to find out more from his savior. So who are you? Yukio mentally asked to the voice that had saved him before soon getting an answer from it. I am the spirit inside your power. I am known as Sparta. My power, but you referred to the gauntlet as Minesso. Are you to do with that cloth covered thing I've got, Sparta? Yes, the gauntlet still sleeps, although you can use its current form to protect yourself. Me power, Amonison, is too strong for you to use at the moment, and even holding its sealed form drains you greatly, he answered, Yukio finding himself confused as he slumped onto his bed. Oh, think you anyway, I'd have had a spear in my back if it wasn't for you, he thought back as he looked at the ceiling for a few moments as he felt himself drift off to sleep, Sparta speaking up once Yukio was asleep. Yukio walked to the old school building. Some of the students were still whining about why he was able to join the occult research club, but he'd managed to explain that Rias had found out that he had a curiosity for old folklores and asked him to join cause of it. Very good story to come up with on the spot, Sparta spoke approvingly as Yukio smiled embarrassed as he mentally replied, it was the first thing to come into my head. He'd finished handing out the leaflets the previous day and understood how tedious the job was now he'd done it himself. Normally Rias familiars dealt with it, disguised as humans, but it was something that all the rest of the group had done at some point in the past. He found it surprising that Akeno and Kaneko had asked for him to use their first names, although Akeno had insisted that Yukio drop the senpai for san. Scratching the back of his head, he found the reaction from the other students to be extreme at best when she corrected him in front of everyone. Yukio headed into the old building which he was starting to get familiar with and headed to the club room on the second floor, stopping outside the door as he called out, I'm entering. Entering, he found the room was dark, the windows covered to stop the light, the others were already there, and the only light in the room came from the various candles spread out on the floor. Heading over to the others, Rias turned to look at him as she spoke, you're here. She turned back to Akeno as she gave an order to her, the black-haired she-devil nodding as she spoke, waving for him to enter the circle which she was the only one standing at the middle of. Yes, but you. Yukio-kun, please sit here in the middle of the magic circle. The silver-haired teen complied, wondering what would happen as he looked back as Rias spoke with a smile, Yukio, your work of giving out leaflets is finished now. Well done, now you can start your job as a devil professionally. Yukio seemed to perk up, interested as he spoke. Oh. So now I can make contracts. Yes, that's right. Though, since it's your first time, it's going to be a contract with someone with a small wish. Udo received 2 contracts beforehand. Since it's hard to do both, I will leave one to you. Rias spoke with a nod before Udo spoke up as he smiled. I'll leave it to you, Yukio-kun. Yukio nodded as he replied. Alright, Yudo-san. Turning back to Akeno, Yukio found himself curious about what she was casting before the magic circle started emitting blue and white lights, opting to stay quiet in case he distracted her. Akeno is inserting your carved seal into the magic circle, Yukio Rias explained, Yukio nodding as Sparta decided to inquire curious. So this will assist with your powers. From what but you explained, Yukio mentally replied before Rias spoke up. Yukio, put your palm towards here. Sticking his left hand towards her, Yukio watched as Rias started to write something on his palm with her fingers. From what he could feel, she was drawing something like a circle on his hand before his palm started to glow, a blue and white magic circle on his hand. This magic seal is used for transportation and it can transport you to the client's place instantly. And when the contract is finished, it lets you return to this room. Rias explained, looking at him as Yukio nodded understandingly as he looked at the circle for a few moments before Rias looked up as she spoke. Akeno, are you ready? Yes, but you. Akeno stepped out of the magic circle before Yukio pulled himself back to his feet, awaiting his next instruction from his crimson-haired master. Now stand in the middle of it, doing as asked. Yukio looked down at the magic circle as it started to glow blue, feeling the power coming from it inside his body. The magic circle is responding with the client. Now you are going to be transported to that location. You already have the manual for what to do after getting transported, right? Rias asked as Yukio took a calming breath before answering. Yep, but no, get going. Rias spoke with a relaxing smile which seemed to calm Yukio down a bit. Noticing the magic circle glow brighten around him, he closed his eyes as he waited to be transported, light covering his body as he disappeared. Yukio opened his eyes as the light faded, looking around the room as he heard a female voice speak. You're not Yudo-kun. I'm sorry. Yudo-san is popular with other clients as well. He represents the handsome category of devils. Yukio spoke calmly, like he'd been explained to by Rias. The teenage girl before him wore a pair of large circular glasses and had shoulder-length dark hair held in twin tails. I wished for a devil from the handsome category when I used a leaflet, she whined, Yukio scratching the back on his neck as he spoke. I'm sorry, this is my first contract, so is there anything I would be able to do in his place? She took a moment to think it over, appraising his appearance as she pouted before speaking. I guess there is. She headed to the corner of the room, picking up a coat hanger, which had clothes he recognized as Yukio spoke up. Is that the exorcist coat of Alan Walker? She nodded as she blushed slightly, speaking embarrassed. Yes, he wanted Yudo-kun to wear it, but you do look more like Alan-kun than he does in some ways. Yukio checked the devil device Rias had given him, inserting the wish before smiling at the fact he could do this for her as he spoke. I can do that, Yukio. She seemed to blush more as Yukio accepted the clothes hanger from her, the teenage girl leaving the room so he could get changed, recalling all he'd seen of D. Greyman, so he could be a convincing Alan. It's funny that you're a devil pretending to be an exorcist, Sparta spoke up as Yukio rolled his eyes as he mentally replied. It's only for a while anyway, not like I'm going to injure myself by accident just by wearing a coat. Yukio sighed in relief once he'd stepped off the magical circle. He'd had to cosplay and acted like Alan, which luckily for him he'd seen, wincing slightly from thinking about the show again as Sparta spoke up. You need to stop thinking about him, otherwise you'll keep having headaches. I know, it's just hard anyway. How did you know how to massage? Yukio mentally asked, Sparta staying quiet for a moment before answering. I've seen a lot of things in my time, I was bound to pick up a few things. Yukio figured the spirit was right as he saw Yudo walking towards him as he asked, how did it go? Elritha to cosplay while I was her butler, Yukio answered as he stretched, his arms and legs feeling slightly sore from all the things he'd had to do. That tends to be the most common things that I do, Yudo spoke up with smile as Rias headed over to them as she spoke. You can both head home now and good job, Yukio. Yukio yawned as he walked to school the next day. He was getting used to the fact he was weaker in the day, although it still didn't help, although on the good side, he had started up running around early in the morning. Sparta's idea, as there wasn't much else he could do to learn how to use his sacred gears. Good morning, Yukio-kun, Yudo spoke as the blonde caught up with him, giving him a tired morning as they continued. Everything alright? Yudo asked, Yukio nodding as he answered. Just taken up running in the morning, Sparta's idea. Sparta? Yudo asked, confused as Yukio nodded before explaining about when the sacred gear spirit had spoke up to save him from that fallen. Interesting, Yudo spoke curiously as they started to see other groups of students. Most of the girls squealing angrily at Yukio being near the blonde while the boys were declaring him a traitor. The pair spilt at the school gates, Yudo quickly getting surprised by girls quizzing him about why he was around Yukio, the silver-haired teen deciding to head inside before he got mobbed by a group of angry-looking guys. After school saw the silver-haired teen sat in front of Rias as she gave him a curious look. So Sparta's inside that cloth bundle, she asked, Yukio nodding as Sparta spoke up. It might have helped that you have kept my presence quiet to Gremory Harem until you could control my power, but I guess it cannot be helped now. It's not like you told me to keep quiet about you and Gremory Harem. Yukio thought back before turning his attention to Rias as she asked, did he tell you what's underneath the cloth? He mentioned about a Monison, but I'm not strong enough to wield it yet, even in its sealed form, Yukio replied, gaining a confused look from the crimson-haired she-devil as she spoke quietly to herself. Sealed form? She is the daughter of a high-class family in the underworld. Many would refer to her as Harem, although you don't need to worry about that, Sparta explained to him, Yukio making a silent O as he understood. That makes sense then, Yukio thought back, noticing Rias was looking at him again, waiting for him to focus back on her before asking, does Sparta know anything about that gauntlet? If I did I would have told you already. Nothing outside of knowing that it's still asleep, but Yukio replied with a shake of his head, Rias thinking as she spoke up. You can head home, no, we'll see what I can find out about them. Yukio's ears pricked up as he walked home, turning back as he heard a thud and a girly shout, Hawa. He turned around to find his sister who was on the floor. Her arms were spread open and it seemed like she fell on the ground on her face. Are you okay? Yukio asked, going over and offering his hand to help her up as she moaned. Oh. Why do I keep on tripping over? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Yukio helped her up easily, the wind sweeping her veil off, revealing her blonde straight hair. Yukio released her hand once she was standing before picking up her veil, which was nearby, as he spoke. It's no problem, are you alright? Yes, she replied with a friendly smile as she accepted her veil back as Yukio noticed the suitcase near her. Are you traveling around, sister? Yukio asked curiously, the blonde sister shaking her head as she replied, bowing her head. No, that's not it. I was appointed to the church in this town. You must be a resident of this town. It's a pleasure to meet you. You too, Yukio replied with a smile as she continued putting her hands in front of her chest and looking sadly down. I was troubled since I got here. I can't speak Japanese that well, I was lost and other people couldn't understand what I was saying. But you was right then about this language ability. What did she say again? Yukio thought as he recalled what she'd said. When you turn into a devil, you get a unique ability called language. As soon as you turn into a devil, everyone in the world can understand what you are saying. People listening to you will hear it in the language they are most familiar with. If they are American, then they will hear it in English. If they are Spanish, then they will hear it in Spanish. And the opposite, if they speak in another language, you will hear it in Japanese. I think I know where the church is, Yukio spoke to her face brightening as she spoke. You do? Thank you. This is all thanks to God. You shouldn't be helping her, Sparta spoke up sternly. Why not? She just needs a little help finding the church, not like I'll go inside, Yukio thought back as he started to lead the sister to it. Don't blame me for not warning you if you get in trouble with Gremory. Harem. I won't, Yukio thought back, being broken from his thoughts as he heard. Beware. He turned to see the boy crying as his mother asked, are you alright, Yoshi-kun? Yukio was about to continue till he realized that the sister wasn't behind him, looking around to see her going towards the boy. Hey. Yukio headed after her as she continued talking to the boy, patting his head to calm him, even though he probably didn't understand her. Are you okay? Boys shouldn't cry with a minor injury like this. The sister put her palm where the boy had injured himself. The next moment Yukio was surprised to see a green orb of light appear from her palm, before flashing onto the boy's knee. Healing magic? Yukio thought as he watched her heal the boy's injuries. Nasakura gear, Sparta answered, picking up on Yukio's itchy hand as she soon finished. Amazing, Yukio thought before noticing that the boy's mother was startled, which made sense given that it was an unimaginable thing to happen. Here, your wound's healed. The pain should be gone now. The sister patted the boy's head and looked at Yukio. I'm sorry. But I had to. Yukio shook his head understandingly as he spoke. I understand. The boy's mother, who was startled before, shook her head then grabbed the boy's hand so they could leave quickly as the boy called back, thank you, sister. He said, thank you, sister, Yukio translated, the blonde sister smiling happily as Yukio asked, that power? Yes, it's the power to heal. It's a special power that God gave me, she replied with a hint of sadness, Yukio deciding against bringing up his own sacred gears, given the situation before feeling annoyed at being unable to use his own. You will learn eventually, do not trouble yourself for now, Sparta spoke up to reassure him as the two teens continued on their way to the church, Yukio stopping over the road from it as the sister spoke. Yes, this is the place. Thank God. She sighed in relief as Yukio managed to hide his wince of pain, noticing that night was setting in as he spoke up. I best be on my way. Please wait, she asked, Yukio stopping after a few steps as he looked back as she continued. I would like to make you some tea. I'm sorry, but I'm in a rush so I have to get going. Yukio replied with a smile and a shake of his head as she started to sound worried as she spoke. But that's. How about next time? I'm Hosokawa Yukio, but just call me Yukio. What's your name? She smiled as she nodded before introducing herself. My name is Asia Argento. Please call me Asia. Alright then, Sister Asia, I'll see you some other time, Yukio spoke with a smile as she replied. Yes, Yukio-san. I will definitely come and see you. Asia bowed her head down as Yukio left, giving her a quick wave before Sparta spoke up. You're really going to accept tea from her next time? If we meet in town then yeah, why not, Yukio thought back as he decided to grab a quick meal before heading back to the clubroom. Don't ever get close to the church again. Rias reprimanded Yukio in the club room. Her expression looked more serious than usual as she continued. To us devils, the church is an enemy's territory. Just stepping into it can cause a rift between the devils and God. Since it was an act of kindness, by taking the nun to the church, they didn't harm you. But the angels are always on the lookout, and you were in a situation where it wouldn't be strange for them to hit you with a spear of light. Yukio's face paled. He expected that he would be fine, given that he was helping Asia find the place, but if they would have attacked him for just being near a church, he shuddered at the thought of what could have happened as Rias continued. Don't get involved with people from the church, especially the exorcists. They are our biggest enemy. They could easily eliminate us because their powers are supported by the prayer of God. More so if it is an exorcist with a sacred gear. That would be the same as standing on the boundary of death, Yukio. She looked seriously into Yukio's dark red eyes, making sure that the silver-haired teen knew it wasn't a joke. Yukio nodding as he replied, right, you could avoid death as a human by being resurrected as a devil. But devils who are exorcised become completely terminated. They return to nothing. Nothing. There is nothing left and you feel nothing. Do you know how serious that is? Rias spoke, Yukio looking shocked and confused back at her before she sighed. I'm sorry, I got too heated. Anyway, be careful from now on. Alright, Yukio replied with an understanding nod, jumping from the voice behind him. Oh my, did you finish lecturing him? Akeno asked with a smile, Yukio calming himself down as Rias asked. Akeno, did something happen? The black-haired girl's expression changing as she nodded and answered. We received an order for a hunt from the Archduke. The group went to the unused building which was located at the outer part of the town. They had come to deal with an exiled devil who was luring in humans so it could feed on them. Now this brings back memories. Sparta spoke up with a nostalgic tone as Yukio looked curiously as he mentally asked. So you've hunted devils before? Yes, even before I was put inside Amonisan, Sparta answered as Yukio followed the others through the tall grass towards the empty building, still slightly surprised at the fact devils had night vision. Smell of blood, Kaneko spoke up, Yukio taking a tentative sniff only to find he couldn't smell anything before his eyes widened at the feeling of an enemy presence with intent to kill. Rias stood at the front of the group, looking reliable with her hands on her hips. Yukio's eyes doing a quick look at her body before catching himself looking at her slender legs, forcing himself to look away as she spoke up. Yukio, it's a good opportunity to experience what it's like to fight. Really, I'm not sure I'll be of much use. Yes. It's still impossible now. She said looking straight at him. Yukio's eyes flickered sadness for just a moment as she continued. But you can watch what a devil's battle is like. Today, just concentrate and look at how we fight. Oh, yes. I will also explain the traits the servants have. Traits? Yukio asked, Rias smiling as she nodded. Devils who become a master give traits to those who will become their servants. Yes, it's probably about time I explain about it and the history of devils as well. From then she started to explain the current situation of the devils to her new servant. There was a three-sided war between the devils, the fallen angels, and God with its angels' followers. All three sides had a large army and they fought for almost eternity. As a result, all three sides lost most of their troops, and the war finished several hundred years ago with no side winning. The Udo continued. The devils were no exception. Big devils with peerage who commanded about 20 or 30 troops lost most of their underlings because of the war. They lost so many that they couldn't even form new armies. The Kendo continued on from there. I heard that most of the pure devils passed away in that war. But even after the war, there are still problems between the devils, the fallen angels and God. Even when the fallen angels and God's side also lost most of their troops, we are still in a position where we can't let our guard down, or else we will be in trouble. Then Rias spoke again. Then, the devils decided to use a system to form a small group of soldiers. And that is the evil peace. Evil peace? Yukio asked confused, expecting things to get complicated from here on, as he focused on taking it all in. Devils with peerage decide to use the traits of the humans' game chess to their servant devils. It was sarcasm, because most of the servants are devils that were reincarnated from humans. Since then, chess became a popular game in the world of the devils. We'll leave that aside. Devils who are masters are a king. In our case, that is me. From there, they created 5 special traits that consist of queen, rook, bishop, knight and pawn. Since they couldn't make an army, they decided to have a small number of devils and give them enormous powers. This system was made in the past few hundred years, and this unexpectedly became popular amongst devils with peerage. Popular? You mean the chess rule? Yukio asked, Rias nodding as she continued. They started to compete against each other. For example, like, my knight is stronger. Or no, my rook is stronger. As a result, high-class devils started to play a game like that of chess against each other, using their servant devils. We call it the rating game. Anyway, this game became very popular amongst the devils. Now, there are even tournaments for it. The strength of their pieces and also how strong they are at the game affects the devil's social position and their peerage. There is a thing called piece collect where they gather humans with talents and make them into their pieces. It is very popular recently. Talented servants become their status. So being a strong servant in a raiding game will mean I'm a splendid devil. Yukio thought to himself. Yes, it will also represent you and Gremory Heim's pride with how you fight Sparta added before Rias continued. I'm not a mature devil yet, so I can't participate in a formal tournament. Even if I could, there are things that I need to go through, or else I can't play. In short, you and my servants here won't be participating in a game for a while. So does that mean that the others haven't played in that game yet? Yukio asked curious. Yeah, Yudo answered, Yukio starting to wonder what piece he was as he asked. But you, what piece am I? And what are my role and traits? Yukio, you are. Rias started before a chill running down Yukio's spine as he felt the killing intent grow stronger. I can smell something disgusting. But I can also smell something delicious. Is it sweet? Or is it sour? A low voice that sounds like it's coming from below the ground, Yukio feeling weird at hearing the scary voice. Exile Devil Vaser. We are here to eliminate you. Rias declared before the voice came out again, echoing around the room. Hua. From the shadows, a figure showed up being revealed as a topless woman, but with heavy footsteps as her lower body came into view, showing a body of a gigantic beast. In each hand she had a large spear, and her lower body had 4 fat legs with sharp claws, as well as a snake tail which moved on its own. She's smaller than I'm used to. Sparta spoke up, causing Yukio to gulp as he mentally spoke back to him. She's about 5 meters tall and you're calling that small? Leaving your master's side and rampaging as you please definitely deserves death. In the name of Duke Gremory, I will gladly eliminate you. Rias declared seriously before the exiled devil barked back. You are cunning for a little girl. I will rip your body and color it in red just like your hair. Vaser speaks in a stylish manner. Yudo. Rias spoke. Yes. Yudo replied before sprinting ahead as soon as Rias ordered him to, Yukio surprised at how fast he was moving as he couldn't keep up with his movements. Yukio, I will continue from the lecture before. Rias spoke to him, Yukio remembering that she was talking about the evil pieces before as she continued. Yudo's position is knight. Its trait is speed. Those who become a knight have their speed increased. Yukio watched on as Yudo easily disappeared with the speed he was traveling. Vaser trying to hit him with her spears, but continuously missing. And Yudo's ultimate weapon is swords. Yudo stopped his movements and suddenly he was holding a European sword. He took it out of the scabbard and the naked sword was reflecting the light of the moon before he suddenly disappeared again. The next moment Yukio heard the scream from Vaser. Jai. He looked surprised at seeing both of the exiled devil's arms had been cut off, blood gushing out of the wounds as Rias continued. This is Yudo's power, speed that you can't follow with your eyes, and sword skills of that of a professional. By combining these two, he became the fastest knight. Yukio's eyes fell as they picked up a shadow by the exiled's legs, widening as he realized that it was Kaneko as Rias continued speaking. Next is Kaneko. She is a rook. The trait of a rook is the enormous monster tried to stamp on Kaneko, but it didn't hit the ground. The trait of a rook is simple, absolute strength and also very high defense. It's impossible for a devil with that caliber to stamp on Kaneko. It can't crush her. Rias spoke as Yukio watched Kaneko easily lift up the Vaser. Fly. Kaneko uttered before jumping high and punched into the monster's stomach very sharply, throwing its body backwards, Yukio gulping as he reminded himself not to get on her bad side. Lastly Akeno. Rias spoke, Akeno laughing and walking towards the monster as she continued. Akeno is a queen. It's the person who is the strongest after me. She is the unbeatable queen who has all the traits of pawn, knight, bishop and rook. Vaser moaned as she stared at Akeno, who had a fearless laugh after seeing her opponent's gaze as she spoke. Oh my, seems like you still have some energy left in you. Then how about this? She put her hands up towards the sky, sparks in the air before a lightning bolt struck down onto the monster who shouted. Gagagaya. Its body was burnt and smoking as Akeno spoke. Oh my, seems like you are still energetic. Looks like you can take more. Launching another lightning bolt that hit the monster. Why Akeno's face while striking down the lightning bolt had a scary and cold expression, even though she was smiling. Yukio shuddering as she laughed. Akeno excels at using attacks made from magical powers. She could use natural elements like lightning, ice, and fire and such. And most of all, she is the ultimate sadist. Rias confessed like it was nothing, Yukio looking confused as Sparta answered his unspoken question. A sadist is someone who enjoys inflicting pain on others. Yukio's face paled as he gulped before Rias added. Usually, she's very kind. But once the battle starts, she won't stop until she calms down. I'm scared of Akeno-san. Yukio spoke, nervous and worried for himself as Rias spoke. You don't have to be afraid, Yukio. Akeno is very kind to comrades, so it's not a problem. She even said that you were cute. Next time, get spoiled by her. She will definitely hug you kindly. Yukio looked surprised between Rias before turning back to the scary Akeno as she spoke. Fufu. How much of my lightning can you take, monster-san? You still can't die yet. The one who finishes you off will be my master. Oh ho ho ho. Yukio shuddered as for the next few minutes, Akeno's lightning attacks continued until she calmed down. Rias confirming it and nodded her head before approaching the monster that had already lost its will to fight, putting her hand towards the monster as she asked any last words. Kill me. The monster said. Is that so? Then disappear. Rias replied heartlessly before a gigantic black magic ball shot out from her palm. The magic attack was big enough to cover all of the monster's body, which it soon did before disappearing to reveal nothing. Not even a trace of the exiled devil's body remained, Yukio gulping nervously at the power of his master, who sighed once she'd confirmed that the exiled had disappeared, turning back to the others as she spoke. It's over. Good work everyone. Everyone relaxing to how they usually acted at that moment, aside from Yukio, who was still surprised at what he'd witnessed before remembering Rias hadn't mentioned about his piece yet. But there is still a thing that you didn't tell me. Yukio asked, Rias smiling as she looked at him and asked, what is it? What is my piece as a servant? Yukio asked, curiously as the crimson-haired beauty smiled at him and said clearly. Yukio, you are a pawn. Yukio slumped slightly at hearing that until Sparta spoke up. In the human game, the pawn can promote itself into one of the other pieces aside from a king, so it's considered as important as other pieces, and potentially a game changer. Yukio thought about it for a moment before deciding that being a pawn wasn't all bad if he could do what Sparta had said. Yukio entered one of the empty classrooms of the old school building, intent on using this place to do a bit of training, as he closed the door behind him before sitting down cross-legged as he followed Sparta's instructions. No, cup your hands in front of you and concentrate. Magic is all about will and imagination. Yukio kept his gaze on his hands, taking calming breaths before a red ball of magic started to form, stopping once it was the size of a snooker ball. But no, you need to decide on what you want to use it as. Me didn't think you would be taking up magic so quickly. Akeno spoke from the now open doorway, the ball of magic in Yukio's hands disappearing due to his surprise as he spoke. Akeno-san. How did you? I sensed your magic, Akeno answered with a smile, moving to kneel down opposite him as she added. You have a good start, but you should practice to summon it easier. Right, Yukio spoke, turning his focus back onto gathering his magic together again, the red ball forming in his hands before looking up as Akeno spoke. So do you know what you want to use it for? Not really. Well, he would suggest fire magic, considering the color shows your strong points. Akeno spoke, turning her gaze to the doorway as she smiled to Rias. Yukio surprised he'd been snuck up on by both third years as she spoke. So this is why you didn't head home then? If you wanted to start training you just had to ask, Yukio. I didn't want to be any trouble, and Sparta knows enough to help me get started, Yukio replied embarrassed, scratching his cheek with his forefinger. It's no trouble, Yukio. You are my cute servant, and wanting to be prepared for anything is a good sign. Rias spoke with a smile as she looked to Akeno as she added. I'll leave this to you then. Akeno, their crimson-haired master, left the room, leaving Akeno to teach Yukio about magic after she'd put barriers around the walls of the room to avoid him destroying anything. Yukio appeared out of the magic circle as he looked around the empty room. He was here for a contract, but no one seemed to be here to meet him, which he found odd, trying to sense for any humans, only to find nothing aside from the growing bad feeling in his gut. Stay alert, Sparta spoke up, Yukio nodding in agreement as he spoke quietly. Hello? I'm a devil from the Gremory's household. Is the client here? Yukio finally realized he was in the kitchen as he headed to the door, taking a moment to poke his head out to look around, only to find no lights around the entire house until his eyes were drawn to the door opposite. Moving slowly and carefully to the door, he pushed it open, picking up the candles which brightened the room. Yukio took a few steps into the room, his eyes picking up a sofa, table and such that would be found in a living room. His nose picked up something disgusting, Yukio quick to cover it as he turned, his mouth dropping open in shock at the corpse that was nailed upside down to the wall. Bowo could do such a thing? Yukio thought, failing to hold back his gag reflex and vomiting onto the floor, coughing a few times to clear his mouth as Sparta spoke. We need to get out of here, Yukio, eyes knitting in confusion as he picked up the writing on the wall. It's written as punishment for those who did bad deeds. I just borrowed the sentence from someone important. A young male voice spoke up behind him, Yukio turning to see a foreign teenager with white hair, dressed as a priest. An evil smile grew on his face as he spoke. Well, if it isn't a devil-kun. He sounded happy although there was a creepy tone to it. Am exorcist, Yukio thought, as he slipped into a fighting stance as he started to sing. I'm a priest. A boy priest. I cut devils. And I laugh while cutting the head of you devils. Lalala, Yukio wondering what was wrong with the exorcist who continued to speak. My name is Fried Zelsen. I belong to a certain exorcism group. Oh, just because I introduced myself, you don't need to introduce yourself. Please don't. Because remembering a devil's name is a waste of my memory. It's okay. You are going to die soon. I will make sure of it. It might hurt at first, but later you will feel so good that you will cry. Now let's open the new door. These insane Sparta spoke, Yukio mentally agreeing as he gulped before speaking nervously. How could you kill that person? I killed him. Because he was a regular criminal who has been summoning devils. So I had to kill him. Fried spoke as if it was nothing, smirking as he picked up on Yukio's shocked look. Huh? Are you shocked? Aren't you running away? That's weird. Weird indeed. I mean humans who makes a pact with devils are scum. Scum indeed. Can't you understand that? No. Is that so? Well you are scum, devil. I thought exorcists were only supposed to kill devils. Yukio asked. Huh? What the fuck is that? A devil like yourself lecturing me? Hahaha. I will laugh at this. You probably could get a reward for being funny. Okay then. Listen carefully you shitty devil. Devils use humans' greed to survive. If you live by making a pact with a devil, then you are no longer a human. It's the end. That's why I killed him. I make a living by killing devils and those that are contracted to a devil. That's my job. Fried retorted angrily before Yukio fired back. Even devils won't go this far. Huh? What are you talking about? Devils are trash. It's common sense. Didn't you know? Seriously, you should start your life back from a toddler. Wait, it's useless to tell this to a reincarnated devil like you. More like, I have to kill you. Ha ha ha. It's awesome, isn't it? Fried spoke as he pulled out a sword that had no blade and a gun, the air vibrating with a bang, as the sword gained a blade of yellow energy as he continued. You kind of irritate me, so can I cut you? Can I shoot you? Is it okay? Okay then. Now I'm going to stab your heart with this light sword and I'm going to blow your head with this cool looking gun. Man, I'm seriously going to fall in love. The priest sprinted towards Yukio, slashing his sword at him. Yukio using a blast of flames to push himself back out of the way of the attack, skidding to a halt a few steps back. Huh? Using magic to dodge my attacks. At least I still got you. Fried smirked, Yukio dropping to one knee as he noticed a bullet wound in his left calf. Wah! Yukio moaned as he clutched his injured leg, seeing Fried smirk victoriously as he spoke. How is it? The special bullet made from light that is specially made for exorcists. And it doesn't make any sound. Because the bullet is made from light. This situation turns both of us on, doesn't it? Yukio activated his gauntlet as he took a deep breath, forcing himself back to his feet, most of his weight on his right leg, as Fried spoke so still up for some more devil kun then die. Die, devil. Turn to dust and disappear. This is all for my entertainment. He was laughing by the end, preparing himself to fight Yukio, until a familiar voice caused both to freeze. Please stop. Both looked to see Asia, Yukio speaking quietly before he realized himself. Asia, well if it isn't my assistant, Asia-chan. What happened? Did you finish putting the barrier? No. Dadu. Asia screamed as she saw the corpse that was nailed to the wall. Thank you for the adorable scream. Oh yeah, this is your first time seeing a corpse like this, isn't it Asia-chan? Then look carefully. This is the fate of humans that are entranced by a devil. No, no. She spoke, turning to look at the pair, shocked at seeing Yukio there, his hair covering his eyes and his gauntlet shaking slightly, at how the priest could just show such a thing to the innocent sister. Father Fried. That person. She spoke as she looked directly at Yukio. Person? No, no. This shit here is a devil. Ha 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 ha. What are you misunderstanding? Fried spoke curiously as he looked between the pair as Asia spoke shocked. Yukio-san is a devil. I didn't want her to find out, Yukio thought bitterly. What? You guys know each other? Wow. Now this is a big surprise. Is it the forbidden love between a devil and a sister? Seriously? Are you serious? Fried spoke with a smirk. Ha 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 ha. Devils and humans can never coexist. Especially humans that are from the church for whom devils are the biggest enemies. Also, we are a group of heresy that was deserted by God. Asia and I are humans that can't survive without the support of fallen angels. Anyways, I don't actually care about that, but I need to kill this trash here to finish my job. Are you ready? Fried spoke as he thrust his sword towards Yukio again, the silver-haired teen starting to build up magic into his gauntlet as he thought. Yes, I've got to see if I can pull that move off now. Putting his gauntlet-clad fist up in front of his chest, he readied himself to attack, his eyes widened as Asia stepped in between him and the priest with her arms spread out in an attempt to protect him. Hey, are you serious? Asia-tan, do you know what you are doing? Yes, Father Fried. I do. I beg you, please forgive this person. Please let him go. Yukio looked on speechless as his leg gave way under him, wincing as he mentally cursed himself for not having good enough control, as his magic dispersed as Asia continued. I can't stand it anymore. You can't kill people just because they are entranced to a devil. You also can't kill devils. It's wrong. Hey, I don't talk shit, bitch. You learned the devils are trash as a church. Seriously, you have issues in your brain. Fried seemed to be annoyed at the sister who quickly replied. There are good people, even among devils. There aren't, moron. That's what I thought until recently. But Yukio-san is a good person. That fact doesn't change even after I found out that he is a devil. Killing someone is unforgivable. God won't allow such acts. Asia spoke, surprising Yukio that she was standing up for her beliefs to the priest. Fried hit her with the side of his gun, and something snapped inside Yukio, magic starting to gather in his hand as his eyes glared at Fried as Sparta spoke up. Don't Yukio, the fallen will sense you. Yukio still gathered energy into his hand as he mentally replied. That bastard deserves it. The fallen angel girl insisted that I don't kill you. But I'm getting a bit pissed. I can't kill you, but maybe I can rape you. If I don't, I won't be able to heal my heart. But before that, I need to kill that trash over there. Fried spoke annoyed, turning just to see Yukio back on his feet, his hair covering his eyes, his left hand glowing red. Beat this. Yukio roared, pointing his palm at Fried, flames blasting the priest into the wall as Yukio took a few moments to regain his breath. Fried's clothes were scorched all over the front as he remained standing with a creepy grin on his face, which turned to confusion as the floor glowed blue and white, speaking up in surprise. What is this? The magic circle of the Gremory household appeared on the floor before the others appeared as Yukio dropped down to one knee as he panted tiredly, his eyes turning as Yudo spoke up with a smile. We came to rescue you, Yukio-kun. Oh my, this is awful, Akeno spoke looking at Yukio. Priest. Kaneko spoke, narrowing her eyes at the priest, who grinned despite the wound in his stomach which was covered in blood. Woof. Here's a present for a group of devils. The priest spoke up as he started to slash his sword, Yudo blocking the priest's attacks with his sword as the sound of them clashing filled the room. I'm sorry. He's one of us. We can't let you lay a finger on him. Wow, wow. A touching word coming out from a devil. What are you guys? Devil Rangers. That's nice. I can feel the heat. I'm getting turned on. So how is it? Are you doing it? Is he the one bending? So are you guys in this kind of relationship? He asked as they continued to clash swords. The priest with his tongue sticking out as Kibble looked back at him with anguish as he spoke back. What a vulgar mouth, it's hard to believe you are a priesto, that's why you are an exiled exorcist, right? Yes, yes. I'm vulgar. I'm sorry about that. Because I'm an exiled. I was kicked out. That's why, screw the Vatican. I'm alright as long as I get to cut devils whenever I feel like it. Fried was laughing and enjoying the fight, while Yudo was staring seriously at him with a calm expression as he spoke. You're the type that is the most hard to deal with. Someone who feels like they are living by cutting devils. To us the most harmful type. I don't want to be told off by a devil. I'm trying to live now just like other people. I'm not in a position where pests like you can talk down to me. Even devils have rules, Akeno spoke while smiling but with serious eyes, showing signs of waning to fight Fried, who spoke back to her with a smirk. Nice. I like those passionate eyes. Big sis, you are amazing. I can feel your urge of wanting to kill me. Is this love? No. I think it's a killing intent. Superb. This is great. I love the feeling of intending to kill and getting intended to kill. Then disappear. Rias spoke seriously as she stood next to Yukio, turning her gaze to him as she looked over him and apologized. Yukio. I'm sorry. I never expected the exorcist will visit this client's house. Her eyes narrowed as she noticed the wound on Yukio's leg before asking Yukio, did you get wounded? He shot me but I got him back, Yukio answered sadly, expecting to be told off later. Rias looking at the priest with cold eyes, picking up the burnt clothes Yukio had caused as she spoke in a low and scary tone. Looks like you have been looking after my cute servant. Yes, yes. I have been playing around with it. I was planning to cut his body all over, but he shot me, and then I was interrupted. It finished as if it was a dream. An explosion roared through the room, a piece of furniture behind the priest being blown away by Ria's ball of magic. I will never forgive those who harm my servants. I especially can't forgive a lowlife like you damaging my personal possessions. She spoke seriously, pissed off at him, waves of magic power surrounding her. But you? There seems to be a group of fallen angels heading to this house. At this rate we will be at a disadvantage, Akeno spoke up as if she detected the fallen angels coming towards them. Rias gave another stare at the priest as she spoke. Akeno, retrieve Yukio and prepare the transport. We will go back to our headquarters. Yes, Akeno stated as she started to cast a spell, Yukio looking to Asia for a moment before turning to Rias as he spoke. But you? We have to take her with us as well. It's impossible. Only devils can use the magic circle to transport. Also, this magic circle can only transport me and my servants. But she saved me from being in an even worse condition, Bichopolis, Yukio replied, his gaze meeting Asia's as she smiled at him as she spoke. Yukio-san, let's meet again. Asia? Yukio called, reaching out to her as the floor started to glow blue again, as Fried shouted. Like I will let you escape. He started to slash towards the group, Kaneko throwing the sofa at him. By the time the priest evaded it with his sword, the devils were already transported to the club room. There are two types of exorcist. Rias started to explain while healing Yukio's leg. The first are the exorcists who receive the blessing from God to perform exorcism in the name of justice. This group borrow its power from God and angels. And the other ones are called the exiled exorcists. Like the exiled devils. Yukio asked as Rias nodded before continuing. Exorcism is a holy ceremony that is performed in the name of God. But sometimes, there are exorcists who start to enjoy killing devils. Killing devils become their purpose in life and it becomes their entertainment. So they get kicked out from the church without exception. Or they get erased for being found guilty. So they would be killed. Yukio spoke as Rias spoke, but there are some who survive. What do you think happens to those bunch? Simple, they go to the fallen angels. And use their power of light to continue to go after devils. Yukio spoke as she smiled to him as she spoke. Yes, the fallen angels also lost a lot of their comrades and their men in the previous war. That's why they started to collect servants, just like us. So the fallen angels and the exiled exorcists have the same objective, which is to kill devils, right? Yukio asked, understanding why they were dangerous as Rias nodded and answered. Yes, that's exactly it. That's why they are called exiled exorcists. Some dangerous exorcists who became addicted to devil hunts started to attack devils and humans with connections to devils by borrowing powers from the fallen angels. So the boy priest from before is exactly like that. He is an exiled exorcist and he is in a certain group with fallen angels supporting them. They are not proper exorcists, but they are still dangerous like the proper ones. No, since they have no restrictions, they are harder to deal with. It's not smart to deal with them. So, the church you went to before does not belong to God, but to the fallen angels. Yukio took a few moments to think, wondering how Asia got involved with such dangerous people, before he spoke just loud enough for her to hear him. But you want to save that girl, Asia. It's impossible. How would you pull it off? You are a devil and she is a servant of fallen angels. It's the two kinds that cannot coexist. Saving her means making the fallen angels your enemies. If that happened, we would also have to fight. Rias spoke back seriously, Yukio looking down at his lap as he replied sadly. But you're just abusing her healing power and she deserves better than being with those fallen angels. Mean, she stood up for me, even though she knew I was a devil. Rias looked at him sadly as she smiled, pulling his head to her chest. She hugged him gently, as she spoke softly. Yukio, if there was something I could do without making them my enemy, then I would. I understand, but you just wish I could do something to help her. Yukio replied with a sigh, a red line over his cheeks as he enjoyed the moment. Yukio sighed as he sat on the bench in a park the next day. He skipped school, given that he still had an injured leg from the priest the previous night, and Rias had said it would be fine. He looked at his hands as he wondered what he'd done against the priest. He didn't understand what Zero was, or even how he knew how to do it. Even his talks with Sparta seemed distracted, as if the spirit was working on something else as he answered questions from him, and even then it felt like he wasn't getting the whole story. Whatever that Zero was, I can't do it again, he thought to himself with a sigh, somehow his thoughts drifting back onto Rias as he blushed. He knew he didn't really stand much of a chance, but he enjoyed his time around her and the others. That was the main reason for him to become proficient with what powers he had, so he could protect them as best he could. I wish there was something I could do to help Issei, but I'd be putting you and the others at risk, and I'm not even sure what I can do with that gauntlet. If only I could use a Monison. His thoughts were broken by a loud rumble from his stomach. Yukio scratched the back of his head, deciding he should go get something to eat as he looked up to see a golden color. Yukio's eyes quickly searched around before settling on a blonde-haired girl that looked familiar. She turned towards him as she noticed his look, her face turning shocked along with Yukio's as they realized who they were looking at. Asia. Yukio spoke in disbelief. Yukio-san? Asia gasped in surprise. Yukio smiled as he watched Asia get confused in front of the register as the employee asked troubled. What would you like to order? They were both standing in a fast food restaurant in the business district. Given that Asia was probably used to living in churches, Yukio found it understandable that she'd never been to somewhere like this, as he decided to help despite her earlier protests that she'd be fine. Sorry. She will have just a hamburger and some fries, Yukio spoke up, the cashier smiling as she took the order. Okay, Asia looking shocked as she spoke. Ooh. I'm ashamed. I can't even buy a single hamburger by myself. Don't worry about it, you'll be fine once you get used to Japanese, Yukio replied with a friendly smile. They both sat down in a booth once they had got their meals, Asia looking surprised at the small pile on Yukio's tray as he answered her unasked question. I skipped breakfast this morning, Asia nodded as she turned her attention back to her own food, looking at the hamburger with intrigue while Yukio spoke. You can eat that by taking the wrapping off like this, he demonstrated for her as she looked amazed at him as she spoke. There's actually a way to eat like that, amazing. Yukio smiled as he kept an eye looking out for any unsavory characters, a small part of him realizing that he was acting like his sister when he'd been younger, stifling a laugh as she looked at him confused. What's the matter? Oh, it's nothing real, just remembering how my sister acts around me when I was younger, Yukio answered, turning his attention back to her as he realized she'd not eaten any of the fries yet as he added, you can also eat the fries like this. Oh my. Asia replied as she watched him eat fries before Yukio added, why don't you try? Oh okay, she spoke before taking a small bite of the burger, chewing it for a few moments before her eyes started shining as she spoke. It's delicious. This burger is very delicious. Well, enjoy your first burger, Asia. Yukio spoke with a smile as Asia nodded before replying, yes, I will. She started to eat her meal, while Yukio was quick to polish off most of it, only leaving him with a strawberry sundae which he was savoring as he wondered over why Asia seemed relieved to see him, deciding to not ask her while she was enjoying herself. Yukio-san, can I have a try of that? Asia asked as she looked still half full sundae, Yukio with plastic spoon in mouth as he quirked his head to the side, giving her a nod as he handed over the spare spoon he'd brought over. Asia smiled as she took a tentative spoonful of the cold treat into her mouth, shivering slightly as she ate it before speaking. Wow. That's so sweet. Yukio pulled the spoon from his mouth as he spoke. There are a few places that do it better than here, but I'm not really fussed. He took a moment to think, wondering over what he should do next, as his smile grew at Asia taking another spoonful of sundae, as he decided that he should show her around for a bit. Asia? Ah, yes. She asked, a line of ice cream over her top lip as Yukio handed her a napkin as he spoke. You've got some ice cream on, he signaled where it was as Asia blushed before wiping it away as he continued. Would you like me to show you around for a bit? Really? Asia asked, surprised as Yukio nodded as he replied, it'll be fun. I stay quiet for half the morning and you've got yourself on a date with the sister. Sparta spoke as Yukio helped Asia play on an arcade machine in front of him as he thought back embarrassed. It's not a dad, I'm just showing her around. Sure you are, Sparta replied with a disbelieving tone as Yukio heard the machine make an electronic explosion, signaling that it was game over as Asia spoke. Oh, you did good, Asia. Yukio spoke as they started to walk outside. He'd helped her with some of the games, although he wasn't very good at most of them. He noticed her gaze drawn to one of the crane games as he spoke up. What is it? How? No, nothing. It's nothing, she replied, trying to deceive the silver-haired teen who started to walk over to the crane game as he spoke. Oh hawk, then I'm just going to play this for a little while, alright. Asia blushed as she looked at the dolls inside the machine, following her gaze to see that she was looking at a raccoon doll inside. Anything I should aim to get, Asia, or? Yukio asked as he slipped the coin into the slot as she started to splutter slightly. Noits. After 5 tries he managed to get raccoon doll, picking it out before turning to give it to Asia as he spoke with a smile. Here you go. Asia blushed in surprise as she accepted it as she asked, how did you? Oh, he noticed you were looking at it, he answered with a friendly smile as she held it tightly to her chest as she smiled as she spoke. Thank you very much, Yukio-san. I will take care of this doll. The evening was setting in as the pair walked the streets laughing. The day had been fun for both, given that they'd looked round the other shops which had interested Asia to no ends. Yukio winced as he sat down on a low wall, Asia looking concerned at him as she spoke. Yukio-san, that wound is it from yesterday? She crouched down and started to check the injury as she asked, can you lift your trouser leg up? Oh, you don't have to, Asia. Yukio spoke with a smile as she shook her head as she replied, I want to repay you for all the fun I've had today. Yukio sighed at the seriously look as he pulled his trousers up to show it, Asia placing her palm over the bullet mark before a green light covered it, the warmth soothing Yukio as he watched her focus on it before asking, how is it? The light disappeared and she urged him to move to check it had been healed, Yukio moving it fine without any trouble as he spoke. Thank you, Asia, you really are amazing, it's a sacred gear, right? Yes, it is, she spoke softly, Yukio smiling as he spoke embarrassed. I've got a sacred gear well too, but one's sealed and the other I've no idea how to work it. Yukio-san, you also have a sacred gear? I didn't realize it at all, Asia spoke surprised. I think your power is amazing, AC being able to heal anything. Yukio spoke with a soft smile, Asia looking confused back at him before turning sad and starting to cry. Yukio feeling bad for what he said as he led her to somewhere they could sit down properly. Asia then started to tell the story about the girl who was called the Holy Maiden. In a certain region in Europe, there was a girl who was discarded by her parents. She was raised in a church nearby by a nun along with other orphans. The girl, who was a strong follower of the church, received a special power at the age of 8. She healed a wounded puppy and a person from the Catholic Church witnessed it by chance. From there on, her life changed. The girl was taken to the main Catholic Church and she was symbolized by many as a holy maiden because of her healing power. She used her power to heal many believers. They were told it was a power of divine protection. Rumors brought rumors and she was respected as a holy maiden even without her approval. She had no dissatisfactions for how she was treated. People from the church were kind and she didn't hate healing people. She instead was happy that her power was of use. The girl was thankful to God who had given her that power. But she was a bit lonely. She didn't have any friends she could talk to. Everyone treated her nicely and was nice to her. But there were no one willing to become her friend. She understood why. She knew that they were looking at her as something irregular. They didn't look at her as a human, but as a creature that could heal humans. But one day, it changed. By coincidence, there was a devil nearby, and she healed it. She thought that even if it was a devil, she had to heal it if it was injured. It was her kindness that made her take such an action. But that changed her life forever. One of the people from the church saw that incident and notified others of the church. The higher-ups of the church were shocked about it. The power that can heal devils. Something absurd like that cannot happen. The power of healing is only to heal the followers of God. Yes, there were several people who had the power to heal. But the power to heal the devil was out of the question. The people of the church thought it was common sense that the power to heal doesn't work on fallen angels and devils. Apparently, a similar incident had happened in the past. The power to heal fallen angels and devils that were not protected by God. But that was feared as the power of a witch. So the people saw her as a heretic. Damn witch that heals devils. The girl who was respected as a holy maiden was now feared as a witch. So the Catholic Church kicked her out. The group that picked her up was a group of exiled exorcists. In other words, she had to get divine protection from the fallen angels. But the girl never forgot to pray to God. She also never forgot to thank God. But the girl was still cast away. God didn't save her. What shocked her the most was that there was not even a single person that was willing to defend her. There was no one who cared about her. It's because I didn't pray, Issei. It's because I'm clumsy. I'm so stupid that I can't even eat a burger by myself, she spoke as she wiped her tears away. Yukio not sure what to say as he sat next to her. She'd been cast out cause she was kind to everything, even devils. This is also a trial that God gave me. Since I'm a clumsy nun, God gave me this trial so I have to endure it. She spoke with a laugh as if she was talking to herself as he gently took hold of her hand. Asia looking at him confused as Yukio smiled, speaking softly as he wiped some of her tears away. Asia, you are not clumsy, you have just led a life where you didn't get the chance to experience things outside of the church. Anyone else in your position would be the same. I want to make lots of friends one day. I have a dream. I want to go buy flowers with a friend and also go buy books and talk. Don't you see we're already friends and we've done loads today to prove that. Yukio spoke with a smile, a small part of him cursing God for what he'd put Asia through up till now as he continued. Even if I am a devil, it's alright. I won't take anything from you can call me whenever you feel like it. I should give you my number as well, putting his hand into his pocket to pull his phone out as Asia asked nervously. Is that a pact with a devil? It's not, we're going to be actual friends. We can put all the other things aside and talk when we want to, and we can spend time together when we want to go shopping or play games, okay? Yukio spoke, squeezing her hand gently as she put her other hand on her mouth and started to cry for joy. Yukio-san. I have no common sense, she spoke between tears as Yukio nudged her slightly as he replied. We could learn by going around the city, I'll help you as much as I can. I can't speak Japanese and I don't know Japanese culture, Asia spoke as Yukio chuckled quietly as he replied. I'll teach you. We could even go to museum to look at Japanese national treasure. I don't even know what to talk about. What have we been doing today then? Anyway, I already think of you as my friend, Yukio asked, Asia smiling back at him. Really? Asia asked, Yukio nodding as he smiled. It faltered as a new yet familiar voice entered the conversation. It's impossible, Yukio's eyes narrowed as he looked for the owner of the voice, finally settling on a slender girl with black hair as he spoke annoyed. She laughed over Yukio's voice before speaking. Heh. You survived. And to add to that, as a devil. Are you serious? That is the worst. Rainer-sama. Asia spoke, Yukio figuring that was her name as he spoke seriously. What does a fallen angel like you want? She sneered as Yukio's question as she retorted, looking at him with disgust. I don't want a filthy low-class devil like you talking to method girl. Asia is my personal belonging. Can I have her back? Asia, it's useless to run away. No. I don't want to go back to that church. I don't want to go back to the people who kill other people. Also, you people did things to me, Asia replied with disgust, Yukio wondering what had happened as he moved in front of her as Rainer replied. Please don't say that, Asia. Your sacred gear is essential for our plan. So please come back with me. I also took the time to look for you. Don't make trouble for me. The fallen started to approach as Yukio activated his gauntlet, easily slipping into a fighting stance in front of Asia, as Rainer laughed darkly. So that's the sacred gear you hold. He was told it was a dangerous one by the higher-ups. But it looks like they were wrong, it's just an ordinary one called twice critical. It doubles the possessor's power for a certain time. But doubling your power is not a threat to me. Seriously, it suits a low-class devil like you. You really want to take her out? Sparta asked, Yukio filing away the bit of information about the gauntlet for later. Yeah, Yukio thought, charging magic quickly into his gauntlet before blasting flames at her, Rainer dodging by flying into the air as she prepared a spear of light in her hands, only to find herself getting punched in the face by a fist, Yukio managing to spin forwards to deliver an axe kick to her head, launching her into the ground. Activate. Yukio spoke, the gem on his gauntlet glowing for a moment before a voice called out, boost. Yukio felt the extra strength inside his body as he landed in front of Asia as he spoke to himself. That felt good. Asia looked surprised at him before Rainer flew up into the air angrily. Disgusting devil, how dare you hit me. Preparing a spear of light in her hand, Yukio started to charge magic into his gauntlet as he spoke annoyed. You killed me first. I'm just repaying the debt. He turned as Rainer threw the spear, grabbing Asia as he shot himself away from the fallen. The sister's surprise at being grabbed as Yukio skidded to a halt on his feet again, a few feet away. He turned to face her only to cough up blood at finding the spear of light hit his stomach, pain searing inside him which started to fade as he realized Asia was healing his wounds. Asia, if you don't want the devil to be killed, come with me. Your sacred gear is essential for our plan. Rainer was cut off as she was forced to dodge a roar of flames from Yukio, despite the fact Asia was still healing him. Go to hell. Yukio shouted as he charged magic again, only to falter upon hearing Asia's voice. I understand. Issei, you don't have to go with her, he can protect you, Yukio spoke as he looked back to her, hoping to be able to change her mind. Yukio-san, thank you for today. It was really fun. She smiled brightly as she checked that his wound had been healed before walking towards Rainer, who smirked victoriously as she spoke. The girl, Asia. That's it. Now problem Sylvedia let you off for today, low-class devil-kun. With today's ritual, you will be freed from your suffering, she smirked lecherously as Yukio prepared to fight again as she spoke. Thank you for being friends with someone like me. Yukio's eyes widened as she smiled brightly as she added. Goodbye. Rainer covered Asia with her black wings as she spoke. If you bother me again I will definitely kill you. Farewell. With it she flew into the air, Yukio's eyes settling on the Ratch-kun doll that Asia had left. As he took a few calming breaths, the flame that covered his gauntlet seemed to grow in intensity as he looked at it. End of the part 1. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this movie with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.